Hello, everybody. Allow me to try to press enter more times. Oh, I can't. This message is 209 characters long. Oh, that's a shame. Okay. Hang on a second. How's everybody doing? I'm just going to tweak this up. Hello, Ayush and Tater and Mike. And the name I have to scroll up to see in my screen is kind of tiny. Zizu. Hello. Welcome. Let's see. If I remove parts of this, then it's down to 192 characters. Pardon me for a second while I shoot through, pardon me, this link, or set of links, or such, that Mike Timko posted in the Discord, because for some reason, YouTube doesn't allow anybody but me to post links in this thing, despite the number of times I've turned that on. And if you're interested in joining the Discord, I have a bot command that may or may not actually show that. How is everybody doing? Wait a minute, we're chatting prior to the stream. I didn't even turn on the magic chat computer. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Nightbot. How is everybody's day going, or week going for that matter? Because we're on Tuesday now. It's been a bit of a hot week. Forum-wise, but things have taken a weird turn at work in a way that I did not expect. We won't worry about that for right now. We'll just sort of set it over here. So, cool, very cool. Now, if you've followed streams of mine, you may know that I've been working at the same place for a while. The lately work has been absolutely insane with timelines that aren't really very realistic. We got some news that the manager or the head manager for our part of the company that manages all the developers on our team took a rather unexpected and lengthy medical leave, and nothing was stated about exactly what the problem might be, what it was, just that it was 6 weeks and could possibly be longer. We hope for the best for her, that there's nothing bad happening. But by the same token, despite the fact that the team size went down, we expected management to get even more ridiculous with their demands, but they seem to have backed off, which kind of has us worried about what might actually be happening there. Or maybe she is suffering some burnout. It's hard to say. I don't know. But as a result, work has been at a sane pace for the last couple of days, at least, which is quite a turn. Oh, I have some mail here. While we check something here real quick, I'm going to click a link here before we do anything. I need to click that I'm not a robot. This has something to do with stuff that we're going to be doing on Twitch streams in just a moment. But it also has something to do with... oh, hang on a second. Hang tight. This may be a sort of situation where I'm never going to be able to resolve this situation. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, well, we don't worry about that sort of thing for right now. Sorry, slightly distracted by what's going on there. Let's go ahead and go through. Now, let's go ahead and push the button here as well. Push the button. Hello, Ben. Welcome to the stream. We're just kicking off here. Now, there's a funny turn of events. We've been doing on my Twitch stream some low-scale game development. More to come, actually, because I've gotten some artwork commissioned for a new stream buddy, if you will, that's going to be an avatar for the bot that's going to be on the screen. Kind of excited about that. But I have been asked previously if we're going to do any other game development on Twitch streams, and the answer to that was yes. And are we going to use Unity? And generally, I would say, no, we're not going to use Unity for stuff like that, because I like to see the whole underpinnings of what exactly is going on in a particular game engine when we're learning things. But I have used Unity in the past, as a matter of fact. And I was thinking earlier today that I should, get that installed here and play with it a little bit, because I hear it actually supports Linux. And lo and behold, when I started the stream, the top of the chat was Sisu asking for a video explaining how to use Sublime Text in Unity Engine and use C# because I don't see any videos to explain it nicely. Can you create a tutorial? And Mike posted some stuff in the Discord that I shuttled over here because YouTube insists on not doing links. But that sort of got me to go about installing Unity, and I don't know if it comes across here, but I actually have a Unity window right up here. In theory, we could be doing some Unity related things, which kind of requires me to create a whole new Unity account. This was specifically for stuff like that, but does Godot have its own built-in tools as well or such? It's been a long time since I've even touched Unity. I'll tell you what. Whoops. I've never actually created anything with it, which is why it seems like it might be fun to actually play with it for a bit, particularly if people are going to be asking questions. The fun part of this whole situation is that at some point in the distant murky past, I actually had a Unity account. I don't think it was Windows related back then, and it might have even been in the period where Unity was something that you had to pay for. And as a result, I probably just played with it for a little bit and then never really went too far with it, if I remember correctly. Now, I had problems creating a Unity account because I forgot that I had one. I happened to use the same email address that I used before. Their login page doesn't tell you that you happen to have used an existing one. It just silently does nothing. I had to use the web page to be able to determine that that was what the problem was. Then I tried to reset my password on the other one, and it's decided that it needs to send me a security code for my own safety before I'm allowed to log into my account again. Unfortunately, it creates an email and ships off said email, and the code is only valid for 5 minutes, but it takes 8 to 10 minutes for the mail to actually arrive. So the chances that I'm going to be able to log into that account anytime soon is something that's going to be tricky indeed. I've heard a lot of stuff about Godot, particularly there's a YouTuber called Games from Scratch that seemed to talk quite highly about it. I haven't seen any of their stuff for a while. I wonder if my subscription went away or something. But, 2D functionality superior to Unity's. That's cool, because I'm not in for no 3D stuff. Incidentally, two things to mention here. One, it's kind of warm in here, so I have a fan on over there. I tested. It doesn't seem to infect the mic too much, but if you get a lot of blowback, let me know and I can turn it off. And due to problems that we've had in the last couple of streams, I backed the latency down from ultra low to low, so we're looking at something like 8 seconds of latency here on the stream, because it was just buffering ridiculously, or the control panel would not connect at all, which was a giant pain in the butt. But if Godot doesn't require you to have a login that requires you to enter two-factor authentication when you never enabled it using the world's slowest channel and the world's shortest timeout, that's already 4 steps ahead of Unity as far as I've been able to determine. Did this actually log itself in? Oh, look at that. It kind of did. That's interesting. I better activate a license, I suppose. Do I actually have a license? Do I have to agree to something over here? What have you actually used Unity for, if I may ask? I'm actually just sort of surprised. I was expecting, I fiddled this right before the stream was starting, and I was expecting, because it says it supports specific exact versions of Ubuntu, that there was going to be a Debian and I was going to have to go through a whole bunch of crap to install it, but it turns out it's just an app image, which is actually kind of surprising. Thanks for coming by, Tater. Yeah, I'm hoping that I'm gonna get to pop into the realm and actually do some stuff now that work is perhaps not quite as insane as it has been as of late, but stuff has just been so crazy with doing work stuff and getting video releases for the latest version of the software that we're hiding inside of right now. I have not had any spare time for anything except for sleeping. But yeah, I want to get some games in. I hope you get your internet problem solved so we can catch some of your streams as well. Oh, you made a game in high school. That's totally cool. And Yatku, hello. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing this fine eventide? We're just discussing the magic of how many buttons you have to click to make Unity do something. I don't use Unity in a professional capacity. It's doing some stuff. It's doing some stuff. Look at that. I think I have something. Does that mean it's actually done something? I sort of lost interest in the whole operation partway through the login pop thing, but I have to actually follow through on this. Now, here's the question. Does Godot have its own editor built in, or could you use Sublime Text with it? Oh, interesting. I thought, has it always been that way? The story of Unity mostly that I remember is that for a while it was a thing that you had to purchase a license for, or if you didn't, there was various things you had to do. I guess maybe percentage of stuff. All the time that I've spent game deving various games, I've never actually done it with the intent of creating something that I would sell, so it never really impinged on me whether or not I was going to have to give any amount of money to anybody for using it. But I remember this idea that in order to use Unity, if you wanted to use like a free version or a not professional version, you had to have a big title screen that said made with Unity, and people started to look down on Unity as a game engine because everybody and their grandpa was making a crappy game by buying assets off of the asset store and then trying to throw it on Steam, and it actually became a liability to be a Unity game instead. And I think they flipped their model around so that you don't have to do that anymore. That's a story I heard, but you know, in 140 character chunks on Twitter. If you do C#, you'll need an external editor. Well, we totally have one right here, don't we? I have all the C# powers in the world. I can even create a stub program. I'm not sure what else to do with it, mind you. But nevertheless. Oh, look at that. It's already untitled for my enjoyment. Oh, whoops. That was actually something that had fields in it. I guess we probably need to set the build system to automatic. Huh. Goodness gracious me. This one? Nope. Okay. I think I had it set up to use mono back in the day. C syntax, C# syntax is out of date? Interesting. I would say Keith Hall is the one that I think that was spending the most time working on that, and his professional life has been ridiculous as of late, so that might have something to do with that. He did mention that he had his first chance to play around with the new syntax branching functionality in Sublime Text 4 for the first time in how many months has that been available in builds? To give an idea of how that works. D-bindings. What's everybody's thoughts on R as a language? Because I couldn't help but notice as I was skipping around through the science and technology section on Twitch that there seems to be a lot of people that are coding in R for a variety of purposes. And it's not really a language that I use or know that much about, so. Do I have .NET on this thing? I do, don't I? There you go. I have some version of .NET on here. I could actually set something up if I wanted to do something with that. Ah, I see. Yeah, I don't C# is something that I know. I don't know it super well. I'm conversant in it. I've written a bunch of GUI stuff, but I've never done anything too substantial with it. And I was actually gearing myself up to learn it and use it, including that project that I was setting up to do a remote build system so that I could use Visual Studio Tools on that computer to compile code here and run it and see the result here when I got pulled off. Fairly specific. Yeah, see, that's kind of what I thought too, but I've saw somebody like had some sort of library to interface with Stardew Valley when the game was running to do something. I don't know exactly what, and somebody else had a software keyboard that was for some reason scriptable or written entirely in R, if I remember correctly, which seemed very cool. It was very colorful on the screen, but I did not understand the situation. Assuming I'm remembering that correctly. But we'll go ahead and close this window here. The funny part about my initials is I can never tell if I'm seeing them because something knows my name or because there's a trademark on something. Oh, hang on 1 second here. Okay. Somebody. Nope. Okay, that is unrelated. That's cool. There was this question that someone had in the forum, and I sort of lost it now because the forum has been ridiculous as of late. But the idea is that if you have a couple of cursors in a file, then everything you type goes into all of them, which works great unless some of them are off the screen, and then you might forget that you're actually doing it. So somebody asked for, is there a way to make the cursor more visible? And it came up with a thing where if there's multiple cursors, the cursor changes itself to be fatter, which seems to work perfectly fine as long as there's only one cursor. But if there's more than one, it goes, which seemed to be cool for me. But the person reported that if you use find and use find to find the first word, then when you push Control D, it doesn't work. But I was unable to replicate that as a problem. I'm not entirely sure exactly how something like that could happen, because I would imagine that no matter how the first selection got created, Control D is going to find the next instance of it, and changing the selection should always trigger the event, right? And now I can't remember what the name of that plugin was, so I may need to. The particular forum post in question that we're discussing here, if anybody would like to check, which includes the actual plugin that we're about to look at here, would be this one. If I can hit enter. Too often I have two or more selections, one off screen, and I edit one only to find I've edited both. Sometimes this is precisely the behavior I want, so no worries, but sometimes it isn't. I'd like to know how I can have, for example, my highlight selected content differently highlight when it is one of two or more regions selected. For example, highlighting one selection follows the cursor highlight. Yes. How to change the color of the cursor? Well, if you're using Sublime Text 4, you push the right keys, you say UI, customize color scheme. That's going to open a window like so. Then there's going to be a color for carrot, which in this case is orange. If you don't have that key, you can just add it. It's a global because it applies to everything no matter what. And then you could change the color of it, like for example, to make it purple. And then the cursor will be purple. That's pretty bad purple for this, so that's probably not a good idea. All things being told. Maybe pink, for example, is how you would do that. If you're using TM theme, the same thing still applies, but the structure of the file would be slightly different. I kind of imagine a little bit on the side or top of the selection that's a counter of how many. Yeah, that would the I guess the issue with that it would be being able to actually see it, right? There is actually a way to tell because it tells you down in the status bar how many selections there are, but that's pretty tiny all on its own. If it was at least near the cursor. The other thing that you can change is the selection color, but there's not one. If there was one for multiple selection color so that it just automatically rendered differently, that might be a way to do it. But that sort of seems like one of those slippery slopes where if you want to know whether there's just one or two, then suddenly someone wants to know if there's 3 or 4 or 5 and have different colors for each of them. And then life starts to get complicated as far as setting these things up goes. I'm gonna take that back out. But that is how you would do that. Now, if you're not using Sublime Text 4, then you won't have, I don't think, it's in Sublime Text 3, the UI customized color scheme. But Package Dev has an edit current color scheme if you have that package, which does the exact same thing. And if that is not the case, then you have to just create a file with the same name as your color scheme with a Sublime-Colors-Scheme extension, and then add a global and put that in there. Boop. What would the name of a plugin be that I would have called this? Selection to top, insert snippet in many selections. Nope. That's kind of a fun one, though. This is a snippet that can produce access to each individual selection as a numbered selection variable. So if you select 3 things and then insert trigger the snippet, each one of them will have a different selection in it. That was a very specific thing that somebody asked for. Let's see. Did I call it untitled because I'm completely unimaginative? Yes, I did. That's an unfortunate turn of events. This is the plugin itself. I could have described it from that actual post. But since this gets called every time the selection is modified, and any press of Control-D should select the next version of the text regardless, I can't see how this would fail to work. Every time it updates this and it checks to see if the selection count now is the same as the selection count it was last time that it modified things. So the selection count would also have to be going up, right? Yeah, I don't see a way for that to happen. I've asked him to confirm how exactly he's doing that. The actual report was, I just noticed that if I select something, then Control-D 1 or more times, the plugin works A-OK. But if the selection process is initialed from a Control-F to find the initial string, then Control-D, the plugin is not run. Well, in what situation would this happen? Even if you do it that way, it all works out. So I'm not entirely sure what the deal is for that. I need to clear the red dot of doom here. Giant cursor event listener. Hang on. Let's name it that and quit and restart, just to give ourselves a base for this. This seems like something that should end up in the scraps repository. So we should make a record of it, just to make sure. Yeah. And of course you can change whatever you like in here. I modified caret extra width, but you could modify something like, say, caret style and change this to be like blink, for example. So normally you have a regular cursor, but if you have more than one of them, they blink to let you know. Or probably smooth is a nicer way to do that. That's what the default was in Sublime Text 3 before Sublime Text 4 came about. Other things that I planned on doing tonight, and by the way, when we do these live streams, for anybody that happens to be watching that's new, hello. We play around with Sublime Text, answer questions. If you have any questions about Sublime Text or anything at all, feel free to shout them out in the chat. Don't worry about derailing anything, and we will answer those. But you noted that when Sublime Text 4 came out, various people had problems with key bindings in weird and esoteric ways. And I think we got into the bottom of why that's the case, but it seemed like I was going to play with it and see how that might actually come about. So say we had, for example, a terminal. We could jump that over here and go, hello, Penguin Novel. No problem being a little bit late. We're playing around with various stuffs here. Temp up. I'm just going to try to replicate the sort of situation that people with Sublime Text 3 were getting into when they started Sublime Text 4 and then having issues with things, which is, kind of one of those weird situations. So if we were to say, extract the file Sublime Text Linux 4107. Oh, where are they? Sublime Text build 4107. We end up with a copy of Sublime Text. And if we were to create a directory in here named data, then we end up with an evaluation copy of Sublime Text 4. And all else being equal, if we were to do this, then the user package would pop up and we'd be able to see that there's not a heck of a lot of stuff in here yet. So maybe we, just for the sake of argument, set something up in here, like maybe, well, actually maybe we don't do it that way. Maybe we just simplistically do this something like whoops, that's not the thing we want to do. We want to do this UI select theme and pick adaptive, because it makes things a little bit darker. If I control P, I can choose preferences and hit enter, and that works the way that one would expect. But we noticed people were having problems with this, right? And it all came down to something along the lines of local Sublime Text 3. So you had build 3211, and for some reason you had crazily overridden the entire default package. Say, for example, you were using package resource viewer and something unfortunate happened, because it does have a command that allows you to completely overwrite an entire package without prompting you. And now when we start it up, well, things are a little different now. The theme looks different. This isn't adaptive, is it? I push Control P, Look, I can no longer press enter in here. If you see somebody having a problem with Sublime Text, this is the reason, or one of the reasons why, if you're having a problem with Sublime Text 4, I should be more specific there. This is the reason why that would be the case. Notice other weirdness here. I decide to use preferences settings so I can view the settings, and I'm told that the caret style changed, so we look for caret style, but it didn't change. It's like smooth, and then we hear that there's something about hardware acceleration, but there's no hardware in here. Or GPU, there's only GPU window buffer, and it says Mac only. What's going on here? Stuff is lying. And this is the sort of situation you can get yourself into if you create an override for the wrong kind of file. Because how Sublime works here is that this is the installation directory for Sublime Text. Inside of here is this list of packages. And one of those is, of course, the default package. It's going to be right there. And there are others. When Sublime loads packages, it finds the names of all of the packages it's going to load. It loads the packages files from here first. But as it's doing that, it looks inside of the packages folder where your user package might be, and if it sees a name here that corresponds to a name here, then every time it's about to load a file from this Sublime package, it looks in this folder and says, is there a file by the same name here? And if there is, it uses the one from this location, and only this one. It completely ignores the one inside of the Sublime package file. Now, sometimes if you want to make a modification to something, that's what you want, because when you reinstall Sublime Text, it's going to remove this whole directory, this one that is down here, the one that it's installed in, which means these package files theoretically go away and come back with a new copy. So if you're to modify one of these, your changes will get thrown away, and you never get warned, because you should never modify anything inside of the installation directory of something. If you had packages installed by package control, well, it puts package files in this Sublime packages folder. I don't have any right now because they don't have package control installed. But by the same token, those are just Sublime package files. So the exact same thing can happen there. So you have to be very careful indeed about doing something like creating overrides. There we go. I'm messing myself up by having a portable build here. There we go. Now, if you actually had a folder that was named default, if it has lots of files in it, then chances, like this one, then chances are good you extracted the entire package when you didn't mean to. This doesn't work for Sublime Text 4 because so much stuff has changed in here. You know, it's kind of like 50% upgrading something, but leaving the other 50% at the previous version. That's just never going to work. Sometimes you might have a preferences file in here, and if that's the case, that means you probably used package resource viewer to edit the settings because you didn't know that when you actually do that, it creates a file in a different place. You don't edit the default settings in your user package. There are settings. You put your settings in here, and they apply on top of the defaults. So, almost being equal, not a good idea to do something like that. But there is one other thing that I wanted to test here. Now everything's back to normal because that's not there, and now means it actually works again. Anytime you see somebody saying that a key binding doesn't work, especially one that must have worked, or someone would have noticed in a year and a half that you couldn't push enter in this box, or they say that how come this setting isn't in the defaults, but you know it is in the defaults, the suspect is an override on a package. But that being said, there's a couple of things you can do to combat that. Let's install package control here. Override audit is indeed a must. And we're going to do that here, just to show exactly how that would work for you. So we install a package. I'm gonna install override audit. It's got some text. You should totally read that. Bano Kazooie, hello, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? We're going to install that. We're going to install one other thing here. But I need to click something over here because I have a package for Sublime Text called Snappy that you can use to view the API documentation for Sublime Text directly in line. I guess I can make this window a little bit bigger. I just sort of scooched it over to the side. This is not the normal window that we use. We're using a portable, unregistered version of Sublime Text 4 right now. This is as pristine as it can be. The only thing that's changed is the theme and nothing else. Let's see. I need to go over here and let's take it back a little bit to here. I don't like having mini HTML in the README because of this. Let's see. If I was to do this, oh, sorry, that's the one that opens the web page. By the way, did you know that I spent a bunch of time creating documentation for Override Audit that explains everything? Come on. I know I have it in here. Did I remove it? That would be a hell of a thing if I did. It's been a while since I fiddled with it. Oh, sorry, I guess it would be in Preferences. Package Settings, Override Audit. Oh, I did remove it. Oh, well, shame on me. All right. There's this. And then, technically, this isn't a link. And I could actually click on it if I wanted to, right? We could also do something like sheet equals window.new HTML sheet. Use the same string to open and close. And now there's an HTML sheet in here. That's nice. I could do all kinds of stuff with this. I could make text bold if I wanted to. I could, you know, if you did this, you can actually modify it, but just for a sample here. Here's another one. Now there's two of them, and this text is bold. Here's the issue that I have with mini HTML. I'd like to copy part of this to show to someone. Oh yeah, that's right. No, if there's any sort of mini HTML or regular HTML, no selectee for you. So that's why I don't do that. It kind of irritates me when other packages do their README in that fashion. Particularly, I mean, it's probably better now because in Sublime Text 4 we have these HTML sheets. So you could convert this markdown to HTML, make it an HTML sheet. You wouldn't be able to select any text, but at least it would be here. But normally people use mini HTML by injecting phantoms, and then if you quit and restart, the README is just empty now, and instead of still having the HTML. Can you help me? Whenever I'm trying to update my oldest version, I download it but not become update. Well, what platform are you on? Also, hello. I'm assuming not Linux, because that normally auto updates as a part of the package manager that you use, and it's not very draconian about color or about file locking. Mac OS translocation. Oh, the thing where if you install it on newer versions of Mac OS and you don't move it into the applications folder via Finder, then it doesn't work. If you're using Windows, then it should automatically update itself. What sort of situation are you seeing where it doesn't work? Is that the auto updater says that there's an update and then it downloads it and then it says that it can't install the update? If that's the case, then the most likely culprit is that something is keeping parts of Sublime Text running in the background. Like the plugin host could still be running because there's a background task, or Sublime something along those lines. Windows is incredibly draconian when it comes to file locking. It makes sure that if something is accessing a file, it cannot be deleted or accessed by absolutely anything else. And that means, for example, that you can't rename a file that's actively open in an application. You can't move a directory out of the way, and the installer needs to create a new directory for the new version and then rename it into place on the old one and move the old one away. At least I think that's how that works on Windows. So if the auto update is throwing some sort of error about not being able to apply the update, normally you get yourself into a sort of a weird loop situation where you start Sublime and it says, there's an update. Would you like to auto update? And you say yes. And then it downloads the update, applies the update, fails, restarts itself back to the version that it already had, and then immediately goes back to saying, hey, would you like to update? So that is a problem with that. Oh, and I missed a new subscriber. Thank you so much for that. I usually rely on the chat to tell me, and this bot does not mention that. But thank you so much for the subscription. How's the dog doing? He is sleeping under the desk and being kind of cranky about it because the temperature is slightly warm and his hair is a little bit longer. And as a result, he thinks he needs to be able to live in the shower, and I won't leave the door open in the shower running 24 hours a day in case he likes to wander in there. So he's kind of cranky and mad at me a lot of the time. He seems to have found himself a situation where if he lays on his back and shows his belly, everything is okay. But he does it as far away from me in the bed as he can. Windows 7. Does Sublime Text 4 support Windows 7? That might be part of the problem. I guess it probably does. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'll have to click a button over here. Products. Sublime Text. Download. I can't remember. XP and Vista. Yeah, that's what I thought. And 32. Are you running a 32-bit version of Windows 7? That could conceivably also be an issue, because there's not technically a 32-bit build of Sublime Text 4. There's only 64-bit builds. But if the auto update seems to download something, without knowing exactly what error it is that you're seeing, it's hard to say. Worst case scenario, if you completely restart your system, then the first thing you do is start Sublime and try to update it, that would probably work. I can't imagine that there would be anything holding it in the background. But by the same token, as long as you're not using a portable version of Sublime, you could just download the version 4 installer and install it directly. And that would work. Sublime Text 4 will automatically use the configuration information that you have for Sublime Text 3 without you having to do anything. And the information about your configuration and the packages you have and how you've set Sublime up aren't stored in the same place as the application itself. They're stored off in a separate safe location. So it should be safe to uninstall and then reinstall, unless you're using a portable version, in which case just install a new portable version of Sublime Text 4 and then copy the data directory over, which is kind of what we're doing here. 32-bit and 64-bit discrepancies is still an issue at the application. I'm surprised that, similar. Indeed. I mean, I spent a lot of time on 32-bit Linux when the rest of the world had marched on, because the software that we were writing hadn't been fully ported over yet, or not fully tested as well, because we make use of a lot of longer integers and integers in general, and we needed to make for sure before we went too far that everything was going to work the way that we expected it to work. So I got to be the guinea pig that kept running a 32-bit version of Slackware Linux when everybody else on the team, i.e. one other person, was using the 64-bit version, because as long as we had to compile 32-bit versions for some machines, it was determined that we needed somebody that was running an actual 32-bit install that used to run stuff before, and it wasn't good enough to just use a cross-compiler of some sort. So I got to be the person that had weird issues with 64-bitness, and by the same token, glibc-ness as well. Well, let's see. That's 18 years. How old am I now? Theoretically, I might be retired by then, but I have been told by my wife that she would like to retire early, and for every year that she retires early, I have to work one extra year, even though our retirement accounts would not require that to be the case. Make a video on that. Whenever I'm trying to use XML snippet in updated time and date. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Whoops. Oh, I'm switching between coffee, tea, and cheese. Hang tight. Okay. Boop, boop, boo. If I do package control, add repository, just a second here. Ah, I see it. Oh, whoops. There it is. Paste this in. I have a feeling I know why this might not work. Are you saying that you would like to inject an XML snippet with the current date and time in it? Because I believe you need to use a third-party package to facilitate something like that. Well, that seems like it probably worked. That totally worked. I have heard from somebody just earlier today that Snappy wasn't available on Sublime Text 4. Well, let's see. What XML snippet are you using? First of all, is it a snippet that you created yourself? I've never used type annotations in Python, but anything that helps to remind you what something is very useful as far as I'm concerned. It's kind of one of the reasons why I like TypeScript over JavaScript historically. Way back in the day, I preferred TypeScript over JavaScript because in order to create a class in TypeScript, you say class, name of class, or class extends class, and life is good. But in JavaScript, you had to modify prototypes directly and chain them together. Now it turns out that that's not the case. But the thing that I like about TypeScript is that apart from that, it also allows you to specify exactly what types you expect for things, and it enforces them. So in that regard, I think that's cool. I've never actually done it myself. Most of the Python experience I have is in Python 3.3 in Sublime Text and doing plugin work. I've never really done anything substantial outside of that. How to get Sublime Text 3 theme in Sublime 4? Well, I'm in Sublime Text 4 right now. All else being equal, if by theme you mean application theme, it should mostly work. There may be potential issues with stuff. A data scientist type Python user. What's a theme that I should actually play with here? Are these actual themes is the question. Let's say Groovebox material theme. That's going to install the package. UI select theme, Groovebox. And there you have it. Although it's a theme for Sublime Text 3, it should mostly work. You may run into some potential issues. Oh, maybe not. Maybe this one actually updated? Some issues could reveal themselves depending on the actual theme that you're using. Like, for example, this button to use git ignore wasn't there before. There may be a backfill now for themes that don't have something there, but that may not be 100% accurate. The other thing is, if you notice something that looks like an area of the interface is a bunch of red and green alternating lines, that means that there's a texture that's missing from the theme. Though that said, if you're using a custom theme like this, then you might find that if you use the if you try to change the file tab style, for example, it thinks it's round. You can try to make it, whoops. Yeah, reload it. Thanks. If you try to make it square, it's not going to have really too much of an effect. Unless Groovebox has been updated. I may have chosen a poor example of this. Maybe Groovebox actually has been updated for Sublime Text 4. There are sort of varying levels of how that might work. Some things are based on the theme, and if they're not updated to support Sublime Text 4, certain aspects of it won't work. It should still mostly visually work, but by and large, the answer to the question is it should install exactly the same as anything else does. There shouldn't be anything special about that. And the same can be said for my inability to press the appropriate key binding, because I spent a lot of today flipping back and forth through projects, and apparently I broke my brain more so than usual. 10% too dull for my taste is a color scheme that we could add, and then select the color scheme and choose 10% too dull for my tastes and choose that as a color scheme. That'll mostly work too. So yeah, there should be no problems in getting, by and large, a theme for Sublime Text 3 and Sublime Text 4. If you see anything that's visually weird, then the solution to that is to ask the person that created the theme to update it a little bit, or you might have to modify it yourself. That's not something that I can help with directly. As of yet, I haven't really delved too deeply into theming in Sublime Text. Going back to Anuja's problem. Well, he said wait. Oh, hang on. Links are allowed by me into the chat, but YouTube itself does not wish to allow them through, no matter how much I say. If you'd like to post a link in the chat, if you drop into the Discord here when this pops up in just a second, you can put links in the chat and share them there. And if you do that and tell me here that you did it, I will paste them into the YouTube chat for other people to see, including people that watch this review the video after it has gone live. Let's go ahead and press the right key. Select theme, adaptive, and select color scheme, Mariana, just to put things sort of back to where they were. Kind of ironic that 10% too dull for my taste and Mariana kind of looks similar in the background color department. We don't have a scratch buffer for XML, but if you actually had XML, there are a few items in here. That's interesting. I'm guessing that's new, but I don't do a lot of XML stuff, so I'm not sure. Probably want something like that, right? And then Whoops. Yeah, it doesn't sort of indent correctly. That's interesting. So this is an example of an XML file, and the question was, whenever I try to use XML snippet in updated time and date, but it won't work. Now there are some variables that you can use in snippets. I don't think the current date and time is one of them, however. Vikram, hello, welcome to the Discord. Let's see, we probably want community documentation, right? Look for snippets, file format, tab trigger description. This here is what we're looking for. Let me click a button so we don't go blind. Okay, let's not click the button because it doesn't seem to have any effect on anything. There are various things that you can pull into a snippet when you expand it, like the text of the selection, the current line, the current word, the current directory, the current file name, the current line, alias for selection, the scope at the beginning of each selected region, which is interesting. I've never really played with that. It can insert yes or no and tab size, but there's nothing in here that has the current date. So if you wanted to do something that inserts date, you sort of have to use a third-party package and something akin to this or a macro. How you do that is actually something I probably covered in the forum at some point, now that I think about it. How to insert current date time into a snippet. There's no date field mentioned in the unofficial blobs. That's why insert date was created. There we go. So the answer to this particular question would be to use the correct tab. Come back, man. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Boop. Thus, the insert date package is specifically for inserting the current date and time. It doesn't say that it's for Sublime Text 4 or Sublime Text 3, but don't worry about that. It hasn't been modified for 6 years. That doesn't mean it's an abandoned package. That means it just works and there's nothing else that needs to be done with it. But if you look in here, it will actually tell you how you might want to use this in a snippet. You can insert dates and times using key bindings. If you do that sort of thing, you can specify exactly what sort of format you want for the date and time, which could include putting some XML stuff in there, I would imagine. Here are some examples of how to format various dates, how to use it in a macro if you'd like to use it in a snippet, is all covered right here in the README for this package, which I will throw in here. So I would say a first starting point, if you want to insert the current date and time, whether you're using XML or not, would be to try the insert date package here and look at the README on the package control page that I linked there. It has examples of how to do it in a macro to inject the stuff that you're interested in. The idea here would be that the snippet that you expand would have the date in a particular field, and then you call the insert date command to directly insert whatever you want, and then call next field in your macro and go from there. That means that you can't do this from a macro where you expand something like this out. In Sublime Text 3, you can't insert the current date and time into something like this. That won't work. In Sublime Text 4, it's actually possible to do that because you can create completions that execute commands. That might have been possible in Sublime Text 3. I don't think so. For a field and a snippet, maybe, maybe not. Not sure. Anyway, there's some examples to go through. And hello, Ashburn. Welcome to the stream. We're playing around in a version of oh, I should probably fix my preferences. A portable copy of Sublime Text 4. Let's comment that out. put things back to the way one might expect. What do I normally use for a font size? $13. Some things require manipulation. We're just so much used to using this particular font for things. And we don't need to specify the color scheme in here anymore either, because we've reverted it back to the default. Interesting. Do you often need to change the tab style between the different options, or was that just something to play with? There's another way we could do a similar thing here, since we're talking about that sort of thing. Let's go back to here. Let me find the correct thing. Can't remember if this is a command or not, so we'll see. That may or may not actually pop up a link at some point, because Nightbot is a bit slow. I can't keep straight which commands I put in Twitch and which I put in the other one. There we go. This sample plugin that we're about to look at here comes from that particular place. Guess we got to do this the old-fashioned way, right? Tools, developer, new plugin. There's a very large comment in this that explains how one might want to use it, but in a nutshell, whoops. Oh, I don't have any key bindings yet. Hang on. There we go. Whoops. Probably should have removed the comments before I did that, huh? Good grief. Oh, right. If something is selected, push left and it'll jump to the left, or if you select the other way, when you push right, it jumps to the right. So basically push left or push right and the cursor will jump to that side when it unselects. If you want to keep the selection, then you need a plugin to do that. But normally, most of the time, I don't think you need that sort of thing. There we go. Oh no, it's an unregistered evaluation version. Don't tell anybody. Uh-oh. May have broken it. Keep the yeah, if you want to keep the selection, then you have to have a plugin. For something like that, you may be interested in this package, which, you know, all things being equal, I probably should have just dropped into the window that's already over here somewhere. Hang on, let's do that. Multi-edit tools is one such thing. Various features for editing multiple selections. Might have something to do with that. I say that I haven't actually used this. Can't remember There's something with power in the name. Power cursors is another one that may also help with something like this. We'll plunk that in here too. Whenever somebody wants to do something with cursors or selections that's outside of the defaults, usually these are the first two things that I would recommend to take a peek at to see if they have the functionality that you want. Or if you're like me, you just go ahead and implement it yourself, because what the hell. Reinventing the wheel is totally where it's at. Now, maybe I should use a different key. Do you have an idea the name of booleans in the UI color scheme? Oh, you mean like for syntax highlighting something? Off the top of my head, no, but if we did something like this, here. We'll do this in the main Sublime that I normally use for this sort of thing. Well, we don't need that window. Just because life's a little bit easier that way. But if this is a boolean, then it's constant.language.boolean if you're using Sublime Text 4. If you're using Sublime Text 3, whoops. Yeah, that's okay. We don't need to worry about that. In this file, booleans are constant.language.boolean. So yeah, constant.language.boolean is the thing that's going to style those. The other thing to point out here, and this is one of those things that I was actually thinking that I should perhaps create a video for. Let's say we want to make booleans purple, because somebody said purple. Let's say magenta, because magenta is totally a color that shows up. So we use this, and it says this big, long scope name. Now, generally speaking, the more of this you use, the more specific your color scheme is going to be. But all else being equal, what you really usually want to worry about is the last item for most cases, which is constant.language.boolean.json. This other stuff, this first one says what sort of file this is. Then there's more meta information that tells you whereabouts the structure of the file. So usually those sorts of things aren't super interesting, but yeah, constant.language should be enough. Now, what you want to do in a case like this, because this can be sort of a confusing type thing. Oh boy, that's just never going to get old, is it? You choose customize color scheme. That's going to give you, your file on the right and the other one on the left. And then you search for Boolean because that's what you want, but there isn't one. So you need to be a little more specific about it. So you can search for constant, and now we can see there's one for constant numeric, constant language, constant character, and constant numeric. So there's not one for constant Boolean, so that's what you'd want to add. So you want to, grab something like thus and plunk it over into the rules section. Change the name as appropriate. And then this would be constant dot Boolean, for example. Change the color. Well, let's say blue 3 and italic bold glow, let's say. If I move this file over here, as soon as I save this, in theory, stuff changes. Whoops, did I actually save that? Did I actually do that correctly? Maybe I spelled it incorrectly. Hang tight. Because stuff never goes well when you're doing it live. Wait, is there did I already... Indeed. Well, let's plunk that over like so. Well, the other way to do this, of course, is this. because I have been known to be terrible at typing at the best of times. So in theory, that, there we go. Italic, bold, glow. But you don't want all of that stuff in there. So let's see. Just sort of whoop. A little bit of that action. Oh, I see. That's just a terrible color. Nah. Did I spell Boolean wrong, or did I forget to add it? Anyway, nevertheless, that is a way that you could do something like that if you want to do it. I know, right? The amount of times that the easy part of one of my videos is describing a thing and the harder part is actually typing it out and getting it to work, because I keep live streams specifically for the purpose of showing that although it might appear in videos on my channel and on other channels that people that are, using Sublime just never type the wrong key and everything just always works. That's not the case. Don't get that sort of idea in your head. It's all editing tricks. And when it comes to doing stuff like this, sometimes more of my editing is fixing my bonehead blunders while I'm typing the stuff that appears in the screen. Video bros, hello, thank you. Welcome to the stream. Oh, I thought that was Victor Vicky saying something there, and just I looked up very quickly. I wonder how many of these things you could add. If you wanted it to be all of the possible styles, you could totally do that. Yeah, that would totally be awful, wouldn't it? So yeah, if you want to do that, this is the thing you want. So yeah, and again, and I have been meaning, because one of the very first videos on the channel, which would be this one, for those of you that are interested, that goes into information on stuff like, what does this scope name information actually mean? How do you actually do what does this stuff actually talk about, and stuff is talked about in that video. And I also have a whole playlist on color schemes and how they work. They're not updated to Sublime Text 4, but except for the part where you can make things glow and underline now, none of that part's really changed, and I never really covered what all of the possible globals were anyway. I always reference the official documentation. Have I used GNU Emacs? Yes, sometimes I start it by accident and then I quit it. Emacs is one of my least favorite editors, because I am a Vim person through and through. Because when I first started using Linux, the person that sat at the desk to my left was conversant with Vim. So that's what he used, and that's what I use too, because if I'm going to need to learn a thing, I might as well learn the thing that the person next to me can teach me. Save a little bit of time. It's also the reason why I use this particular version of Linux as well. Did you have a particular question in mind about that, or were you just curious? When I used Emacs most back in the day, it wasn't a GUI version. It was always one in a console. To the end of a bracket? Oh, that's a good question. I almost started to like Emacs with Evil, but unfortunately I'm mostly using Windows. I'll tell you this, on some systems, I wonder if this is one of them. No, it's not installed here. For a while, the default, or one of the things that this distribution and others installed was Vile, VI like Emacs, and the symlink for VI would default to Vile or to Elvis, which looks similar to VI and Vim, but doesn't behave exactly the same way, or various other things. And it was incredibly irritating when you first set up a new system that the editor does not do what you like. Yeah, when it comes to Emacs, and I presume this is how I traditionally would run Emacs. The only key binding about it I know is Control-X, Control-C to make it go away, because I usually start it by accident. Yeah, regarding selecting content from the cursor position to the end of a particular thing, I think you would need to have some sort of plugin for that, depending on the situation that you're doing stuff in. Because, whoops. This is word to the right. You could do subwords. Oh, well, let's see. In Python, no. In Python, constant.language.python is the scope that's actually used for that, which is kind of weird. In order to fix that, you could do two things. You could copy this, whoops, and change it here, and then you change the color and whatnot if you wanted them to be different. Or you could say this. What did I say that was again? I've already forgotten. Constant.language. And then it would work. There's also, so this is two ways to do that. I'm kind of surprised that that's actually the case. I know one of the main contributors to the default packages is the one that worked on the Python syntax. It may not have been one that has received a bunch of rewrites yet. I'm not sure. Assigned constant. Oh, there you go. The other thing that you might notice for something like this, if I do that, in Python, that doesn't apply, but that's okay. Well, let's say we go to create a JavaScript, right? Function Bob x equals true, like so. Which is exciting. That's exciting. Now, what about expanding the scope? Well, that would be Control-Shift-Space by default. So, actually, let's do this real quick. Because I actually have some CSS laying around. For the project that we're working on in the Twitch streams that we do. So let's see, what did I say? It's not one I normally use, Control-Shift-Space. So here, Control-Shift-Space to there, to there, to there, out. That would take it out by scope if that's what you're interested in. The font that I'm using is called Yoshevka. SS style. This particular version is Yoshevka Style Set 9. There are many of them. If the bot ever responds, it'll give you a link. The first link there is a GitHub link. That is the link to where you can get the font as it exists by the person that created it. And the bit.ly link will let you download a version of the font that I have, which has its weight changed from 500 to 600 because I thought the other one was a little bit too skinny for my tastes. There's two versions of the font in there as well. There's one that has term in the name and one that doesn't. The term one is one that's meant to be used in a terminal where you don't want a ligature to do something, whereas in a file like this, you probably do. Well, CSS is a bad example of that. You won't have to do that over here. You know. Let's go ahead and save that stuff back up. Sent on. Oh, sure. Hang on a second. Boop. I will look. Let's see. Boop, boop, boo. This is the snippet. This looks vaguely familiar. Did I help you one time with being able to auto fold something when it was inserted? Yeah, strike through would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? There's not really a way to do that right now, is there? Draw empty regions with a horizontal bar instead of a vertical one. Yeah, there's no way currently to use a region to do that either, right? You kind of have to use a mini HTML and a phantom for that or something. I imagine if you maybe you could add a request for that. Maybe there's a reason why it hasn't been added, or maybe it was just that nobody asked. The underline one kind of surprised me as a thing, but I guess that does make sense for links, right? I'm guessing that's probably why that one was added. Yeah. The other thing that I was gonna talk about here is the idea of this. What if you had some JSON? Well, I guess that's a bad example because this is totally one that uses constant.language, the same as Python does. Yeah. Shoot. Same sort of thing applies though. Don't want it to get angry. The scope for this is constant language boolean dot true, and this one is constant language boolean true. Notice that this one has a .js on the end, and this one has, oh sorry, that's the same. Crap, that's not a good example. I thought that TypeScript would have had a different suffix, but I guess not. Oh, I guess you need to do it the other way. Here. The point that I was trying to get across is that constant language boolean is for everything there. Take the same thing, make it red, and add source.ts in front of it. And now the one for JavaScript is blue and the one for TypeScript is red, if you like to fiddle something like that. And the GitHub one too? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I'm not going to lie. The reason why that particular live demonstration went off the rails is because, like you, I would have expected everything to have a TS suffix and not a JS suffix. But it's probably because it's extended. So that's probably the reason for that. So there's a couple of ways to pull something like that off, right, in your color scheme. One way, if the things were actually different, would be to say that one of the rules is constant language boolean JS and one is TS or what have you, and the other one would be to put the thing at the front. So inside of a TypeScript file, this is styled that way. I guess the other fun thing there is that we can do this. And then I guess there's some magic here. That's some pretty clever action. Oh, sorry. Yeah, for some reason, despite my best efforts, YouTube will not allow... Oh, sorry. There's this... Remove the semicolon from the end. I'll fix the bot. YouTube must not be very clever about that. But yeah, links are allowed in the chat, but for reasons I do not understand, no matter how many times I turn on the option, YouTube doesn't display them. It doesn't display them to me or any other moderator. It just silently eats them, which is very irritating. Boop. Let me fix that right now, as a matter of fact, because I think that's not the first time that that's actually happened. But yeah, it's an open source font, so it's freely available. My version is just one that I modified to make the default width just slightly wider. We may not be able to do that right now because it is totally connected to Twitch. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll leave well enough alone on that one. Yeah. I wonder if I could ping YouTube support and say, how many different options are there for hiding links? Because no matter what I do, they don't appear on my channel, despite the fact that they're turned on. I've even tried turning the setting off and then turning it on again in case something was stuck internally. But that did not work. Yoshevka, I'm guessing that that's how you pronounce it. That's how Google pronounced it when I asked it how to say it, but I wasn't ever sure if it was pronouncing it correctly or just repeating it back to me the same way I said it. But for what it's worth, text recognition, when I say it that way, comes out spelled correctly. So there you go. I probably don't need that going. I have a potential sneak peek here for anybody that happens to follow me on Twitch, where I also stream Wednesdays and Fridays doing various computer development stuff. I still use Sublime, but I don't necessarily talk just specifically about Sublime like we do here on this channel. We've been working on creating our own drop game and some other things, and something that's coming soon to that is our own little stream buddy that'll hang out on the bottom of the screen and basically be an on-screen version of the bot that otherwise exists in the channel, which could do a bunch of cool things, such as heckling me or responding to people's questions in the video, just to make things more engaging. And I have this as artwork for that. This is just one of the versions. This is the version of it actually driving around. It's supposed to have a transparent background, so it doesn't show particularly well here. And we also have a version of it that can fly around as well. So sometime soon in Twitch streams, we're going to be working on taking this bad boy and converting it, like we've been doing with some of the other stuff, for the parachute drop game, and coming up with a little stream avatar guy that drives around. But this is a little something that I actually got created yesterday by an incredibly, ridiculously talented guy who took my vague description and turned it into something way cooler than I could possibly have ever expected. The fun part about this is going to be taking all of the different sprites parts out of here and layering them up in an appropriate thing, because the antenna, for example, isn't always supposed to be transmitting. It would only do that while it's talking, for example. My Twitch is, if that'll respond, twitch.tv/odatnerd. I'm very unimaginative as these things go. I stream 3 days a week, Tuesdays on YouTube and Wednesdays and Fridays on Twitch. Tuesday streams are YouTube streams, which are Sublime Text related streams. By and large, I will answer any question that I can, but usually they're about Sublime Text in support of the channel, because that's the topic of the channel at large. On Twitch, we just do software development of any and all kinds. So we're doing things like creating our own parachute drop game, created a bot, other Twitch integrations, and so forth. Oh, as a matter of fact, I guess in theory, I could say something along the lines of, hey, check it out, the bot actually responded. Surprise! People seem to love that on Twitch, but yeah. So this is one of the things that we're going to be working on at some point. I'm not entirely sure when, probably in the next couple of weeks. I'm pretty close to having the drop game at the position where we want to have it, but it's a pretty exciting time, all things told. Oh, and let's double check that. Somebody shared a link to me earlier of something on YouTube, but it's from the Conan O'Brien's YouTube channel, and Canadians aren't allowed to watch Conan O'Brien on YouTube. Did I see? Anuj said you sent images, but it looks like in the Discord there, it's a screenshot of a snippet. If you want to have the date and current date and time inserted in here, I'm assuming up in that header where it says created by on, then you definitely want the insert date package and this. You would do it very slightly differently to this. We'll work up a little example here. We got some time. For this. Let's see. The actual package we want to install is insert date. So first of all, we probably have way too many windows open here. Does this one need to be a window? No. Does this one need to be a window? No. Does this one need to be a window? No. We didn't quite get that working, but besides the point. We're working on other stuff here. We can close that, close that, close that. So let's say we install a package, and the package we want to install is insert date. I'll close the Discord so that I can actually see if something happens in the chat. DevPP, hello and welcome. Oh, shoot. Oh, it's still loading packages. I swear, that just takes more and more time every day. Can you help with precompiled headers for C++ and Sublime Text in Linux? I've watched many videos. Oh, I'm not entirely sure what it means by precompiled headers. Do you have an example of something you're trying to do that doesn't work? And maybe we could work through it and see. We install insert date, like so. Now, package is installed. I'm just going to shoot that over here. Whoop. You should set your time zone in insert date settings in order to properly use that package. Want to do that now? Yeah, sure. I am Canadian. Oh. Stop dragging. I'm in a situation here. There we go. Canadian Pacific is my time zone. So I installed, that was a fun bug, huh? Dragging a text while a quick panel pops up. Always read the README that appears for a package that you install using package control. Theoretically, when you're opening one, you're actually opening the other. The distinction, by and large, is that when you create a package, you always get one workspace with the exact same name as the project. But it's possible for you to have more than one workspace associated with the same project. So if you only ever have one workspace, then opening one is the same as opening the other. But if you have multiple workspaces into the same project, then picking a different workspace gives you a different layout. We can show an example of that in just a second. So we have insert date here. We're going to say, let's create a new snippet. And let's say that this is going to be something for doing something in C. Looks like that's what you might be using there. So you might have something like if and def file name. Oh, sorry, yours was slightly different, wasn't it? So there'd be like a thing like this, and then you could say created by that. There's actually a snippet for that variable for that, but we'll leave it alone. I cannot type today. Created on, and this is where you put a field. It's important that you know exactly what position that's in. We'll call this header, like so. So now if we had a C file, then we could thus, and it injects. Now it's waiting for us to actually implement this. How do we actually insert the date into there? Indeed. Well, if you have a project, you should automatically have a workspace, so that shouldn't be the case. Closing a window with a project in it should work. Something to keep in mind though is this. If I have this window here and I say project, add folder to project, and pick something like the user package, if I close this, let's see, have a thing in here. If I close this, it asks me, do you want to save changes before closing? That's because that window isn't a project. That's just a window with a folder open inside of it. What you would want to do is project, add folder to project, pick the user folder, and then do project, save project as. Choose a place like something like so. Now if I have a file in here and I modify it and I close the window, doesn't matter because there's a project in this. That means it automatically has a workspace associated, so it will automatically store the state. And then when you create a new window, you can get back to something, and it brings you back to exactly the state that you were in previously. And the other point to make here is if you have multiple layouts, I could say project save workspace as and call this other like this. And now if I was to create a window, it always maximizes, and say I want something, I end up with that one. I may have screwed that up. If I choose other, I think you need to say new workspace first. Pardon me. I did that in the wrong order. Basically, we would do something like this. Hang on. This is the one that you normally have. It would have one column like this, and then you might say close that and you're good to go. And then you have a new window, and then you pick something, and you end up with the thing. And then you decide you're going to change the layout, so you add a couple of extra columns in here like this, and then you do project, new workspace for project. Do stuff in here, save this one. There will be two of them in the list, and you can recall them back to specific window layouts. If you do that, it's saved in the Sublime workspace file that's associated with the project. So it gets saved wherever the project is stored, which in this case was my user package, which I should probably get rid of at some point. Now, we have this snippet called header. You want to actually put the date in that position. And let's say we put $0 at the end here. Well, you don't need to do that. If you actually wanted to insert this snippet such that the current date appears in here, you can't insert it this way. Like you couldn't add a tab trigger and then say in my C file, hello. That's not going to work the way that you want it to. You have to invoke the snippet manually. And an example of that was in here. So you would create a macro with content that looks like this. I'm just going to copy that content directly and come over to here. And paste it in. We'll change that slightly differently in just a second. But remove these two because there's only one field in this snippet. It's that one, and it's the first one. So that's going to be the first one that's active. We're going to save this into our user package as header.sublime macro, like this. Oh, balls. Let's rename that, shall we? And then close it and reopen it. So now there's a macro. Now this is actually trying to insert direct text. That's not what you want here. You actually want to have different arguments in here. We want to have, what's the name of the argument that the insert snippet command takes? Oh, by the way, just related to that whole thing there, I have a video that talks all about projects and workspaces and how to work with them. That one was actually practiced, so, you know, the demonstration of having multiple workspaces actually worked because I thought about it beforehand instead of trying to do it while I was talking. Maybe interesting. And thank you so much for the subscription, kind subscriber who I also did not see because it doesn't provide any sort of activity feed for me here. We need to check that out. So let's see. Name. Okay. What you would probably want to do is look in the actual default key bindings. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's I like to provide a little context for stuff. When in doubt for something like this, I would do this. I would open default key bindings and search for insert snippet and see if there's any examples of it inserting something that's not contents, which it does. And here's an example of one. We'll just sort of copy that and paste it over here for just a second. It's going to look all awful in red, so let's move it up. So the insert snippet command can take two arguments. One is content, and the other one is where you give it the name of an actual package thing to do. So let's pop that out and throw this in here. So the snippet would say name, packages, user, no snippets, and I named it header. Like this. So now this macro says that it should insert this snippet. Once the snippet's in, insert the date, and then go to the next field. So if we had that scratch C file like this, then we could go to Tools, Macros, User Header, and now it has the date in it, like so. That's a good question. I guess it depends on, personally, my take on this is if I have a question for somebody, I tend to ask it in the Discord because if there's anybody that's currently online and they don't have that Discord muted, then they'll see it right away, and that could potentially draw a faster response than if it was a question that was posted on the forum where you have to wait for somebody to come along, which could be a couple of minutes, you know, if it's me, because I have a pinned tab for the Sublime forum in the window over here and on Stack Overflow to make sure that I'm constantly able to check things out as we go. The other thing is, if you post a question on the forum and you get an answer, then it's more searchable by the web in general. If somebody has a similar problem, their Google search might lead them to the forum, which would lead them to the answer, which isn't something that works with Discord. So if it seemed like a question that required an answer that other people may be running into, I might default to the forum for that reason, or maybe in both, because you can always go back and answer yourself in the forum to provide that context. But I'm sort of divided on that one myself, because I tend to just sort of hang out in the Discord in the general case for chatting and helping purposes. So I'm always there ready. But yeah, the whole web search thing is, I think, one of the reasons why the Discord is sometimes not. I mean, you can search inside of the Discord from inside of the Discord, but you can't hit something elsewhere. The Discord link is not accepting invite. Which one? The one from the bot? It's been used so far tonight. It should last forever if you mean the one that the bot is popping up from time to time. I'm not sure why that would be the case. Well, let's see. Yeah, it totally works for me. So, oops, shoot, don't pin that. That's not going to be good. Oh, is the one in the description? Yes, Will's still going to continue working on package control. As a matter of fact, he's mentioned some plans that he has to make package control more sustainable for him in the general case. Features that probably don't affect you and I as standard users of Sublime Text, but for organizations that want to have Sublime installed inside, but they don't necessarily want things to be able to hit the internet as a whole. So that's definitely a thing. Let's see. I think they are, yeah. I thought I heard somebody say, and let me just double check this real quick. The Discord, is that different from this? Oh, balls. That's awful. The one in the link, here, let's do this while we're discussing. If you want to join the Discord, then this link, when it pops up, should definitely work. I'm going to wait to see what it actually spits up there, and then I can modify it here. No, actually, sorry, this Discord link here is my own custom Discord. Pardon me. Do I not have my own Discord in here? What the hell, man? That's a little bit of that's a little bit of an oversight. Yeah, that one, this link in the chat right now leads to my Discord. The one that's in the description also leads to the official Sublime Text Discord. So yeah, those both work. I should totally fix that though, because that is bust. But yeah, I think projects and workspaces both appear in here. You can see the actual extension, but by and large, the name of them is the part that you normally... what sort of error are you seeing? Because when I click on it, it works for me. Well, I can try. Let's see. Boop, boop, boo. Hang on. I don't... What did that actually do? Hang tight. Because I'm all conflustered now. It's asking... Oh, go away. It's asking me questions that it doesn't normally ask me. Oh, this window is completely immovable now. Uh-oh, I got an issue. My Sublime window is totally hung. Try this. While I mildly wonder... Oh, because this is open, right? Okay. Yeah. That might... If that one doesn't work, then there's something funky going on the other end, but... If you want the same project to show different font sizes, no, in that case you would have to use different Sublime project files. The way that this works, I don't have an example of that here, do I? No, I do this. So override audit is my package. For some reason I have the changelog open in it. If you do edit project, when you have something open, it contains the list of folders that are open, potentially key bindings if you use my package that's linked on my Discord, and there's this settings thing in here. And if I wanted to, I could say something like font size 20, like this. And then this window is really big. But if I had another window, the text in this one is not. This one's small. And as a matter of fact, if I was to take this tab and drop it into this window down here, the text gets small again. And if I was to take this lorem ipsum that's small and put it up here, it gets big. The settings are associated with the project file. They're not associated with the workspace. The workspace contains things like... The workspace contains things like the size of this window, which files are open, where the cursor was, if there's some selected text, the undo buffer, and all of that sort of stuff. And the settings are applied here. So if you wanted to have the same project in multiple windows with different settings, including font settings, then you would need to have different projects, all else being equal. Usually when someone does something like this, the reason for it is for setting the color scheme. Like commonly you would see something like color scheme and then the contents of this window are different than the contents of another window if you have two projects open, and it's easy to distinguish them if you have, the thing where if you hover over a tab and you see the little screen. It's usually what I see people using that sort of thing for, is a color scheme. And when it comes to settings in here, by the way, if we were to do something like preferences settings, you get this split window. On the left is the defaults. Settings in here fall into three categories: editor settings, application settings, and visual settings. If you scroll down through all of these settings, eventually you hit comment. It's down here somewhere. There's a lot of settings in this thing. Let me just say. This comment says from here down it's user interface settings. And then after a little bit further down is application behavior settings. Settings that you can use inside of a Sublime project file are everything above this comment. So all of these. So you can change the color scheme, whether or not it's light or dark, which color schemes are used in that case, which is kind of interesting. Fonts, font options, etc., etc. But you can't say something like, I want square tabs in one and angled tabs in another, or I want this window to use the project to use the material theme and this one to use Groovebox, because those are application specific settings. Basically anything that modifies something inside of here. Other common uses for this would be if you like to use tabs, physical tabs for indent and a tab size of 4, but you're working with someone else that uses a different setting, then your settings would conflict. So you could set up project specific settings that says, while I'm working with this person on this project, use these settings for files. An example of that particular thing there. Oh, it looks like that one might have worked. Amano, good to see you here. Hopefully that invite link worked for you. Cool. And welcome to the Discord. I almost spilled coffee on myself. So yeah, I forgot what I was. Yeah, the project is where that stuff is stored, and the workspace is for everything else. Now, if you have hot exit turned on, like I do, then if you close the last window, Sublime quits, and then when you restart it, it brings the state back. The information that hot exit persists goes into the workspace file for any window that closes that has a project associated with it or a workspace associated with it. And everything else goes into the session information. Another fun thing that you can do, by the way, is create a workspace for something when you don't have a project. Say there's no project in here, I can't edit it, but I could save the workspace as and call it like untitled. Look, there's already one in here because I've probably done this before. And now I can have multiple tabs in here. Now I can open this window. I can close this window if I want. And if I decide that I want to get those files back, I can look for untitled and bring them directly back. There's not any project associated with this, so I can't do any settings or anything. But say you have common notes that you use on a regular basis, it's not worth having a project associated with them, but you still want the state of this window to be persisted so you can bring it back. You can always use a workspace for that as well. I don't know that I've never seen a lot of people do that in the wild, but it's totally something that you can do. That would be an example of when you do something, you only see workspace. You don't see the project and workspace versions of these two things in here. Okay, so we helped with quite a few things here, hopefully. The full rundown on the new autocomplete system, no, that one is not done yet. There's a lot of stuff in that one to nail out, if you will, and all of these settings and what they do. So that one is still forthcoming. And videos about Sublime Merge are also coming, but everything sort of got pushed down the schedule a little bit when Sublime Text 4 was unexpectedly publicly announced and then released, because I wanted to cover that while the topic was still fresh. So the rest of the schedule for videos had to sort of get pushed back a little bit for those ones. Oh, I got a cut on my finger here. But it is definitely coming. If you have questions about autocomplete in general, if there's anything generally speaking that you're unsure about, make sure you let me know in a comment or a message in the Discord or something, and I can make for sure that I definitely hit that as something that is covered in that video. Because by and large, I sort of gather together the questions that people have about a thing and then try to describe those, and also common pitfalls that I see people run into, but that could potentially skate over other issues that people are having or questions that they have that don't necessarily get directly answered. And I do like, where possible, to create videos that are going to create the most possible help for the most possible people. So that sort of customization is something that I sort of strive for. Pardon me. That seems to be going rather well. Does anybody else have a question about Sublime? Because we have reached more or less the point where we sort of shut this stuff down. And although I can, of course, go long if somebody else has a question. I can't remember where we were doing that. Here, let's see. Let's quickly investigate this. Why does this not do a thing? Let's double check. Oops. Make sure that I set that correctly. Oh, is it not allowing the... Oh, whoops. Oh, right. That was... Okay. I mentioned just moments ago that when it comes to using settings inside of a Sublime project file, you can only tweak editor settings. You can't tweak general application behavior settings or visual settings. That is why what I was trying to demonstrate here doesn't work. I would say yes. As a matter of fact, historically, way back in November of 2019, when the first builds of Sublime Text 4 were made available in the Discord, I asked John, because I was interested even then in creating a video to cover such an exciting new thing, because it was really sort of a bomb drop, how long he thought that it would be before the release went public, because we were initially asked not to share the links outside of the Discord because it was very early days, and he wanted to get like a focused look from some of the people that are most involved in the community that would be able to tweak bugs and such. And John said that he guesstimated it would probably be a couple of weeks, and it turned out to be a year and a half. But a lot of time in that intervening thing was the developers of LSP, the Sublime package, who are very regular in the Sublime Text Discord, going back and forth with Sublime HQ and John about the existing API in Sublime Text 3 and how it could be augmented to make it play better with LSP. And a lot of those, or all of those suggestions, were implemented in Sublime Text 4's new plugin API, or the new additions to the API. There's a lot of them in there that were added specifically to make LSP perform and work way better in Sublime Text 4 than it does in Sublime Text 3. So in that regard, I would say it should work quite well. And the developers of the package themselves are, actively using it. As a matter of fact, if you join the Sublime Text Discord, there's a dedicated channel specifically for LSP if you have any problems. As I understand it, it's not 100% identical to Visual Studio Code, based on, I'm not entirely sure what. I think there are a couple of things that Visual Studio can do that Sublime can't, as regards display of text. Like, I think Visual Studio has the ability to semantically highlight things by examining the buffer on its own and then saying, oh, this word is special, let's make it blue. That's not something that Sublime can do. Sublime can only syntax highlight stuff based on the syntax definition. I've never personally used LSP in any meaningful way. We've only played with it a little bit on streams. That's one of those things that I will be playing with more, because we do want to do a video series talking about LSP in general. So I need to know more about it so that I don't come across as like a boob. But everything that I've tried seemed to work rather well and more or less how I would expect it to work. So best case scenario, give it a try, and if not, you don't have to use it. But I think it far exceeds the what's the name? Sublime Code Intel is an example of something. I don't know what languages that covers, but I do know that I've helped a lot of people on the forum and whatnot, and in Discord messages and private messages in other places, with auto-completion problems that turned out to be caused by Sublime Code Intel, which probably needs to be updated, because I think it was trying to work around issues with Sublime Text 3's autocomplete system, and now it doesn't need to do that, and it's actively getting in the way and being irritating. But yeah, that's totally not going to work. Just to cover this here, somebody mentioned previously in the chat that they created a plugin with a quick panel to quickly switch between tabs, and I was going to demonstrate that you could use this, but you can't, because this isn't a setting that's a view specific setting. That's why that didn't work when I pushed the key. Interesting. Cool. Yeah, like one of the things that LSP provides is code linting, right? So in that regard, I would think if I had a choice between using, that can be bigger, between using Sublime Linter and LSP, I think I would probably choose LSP, all else being equal, because it provides linting support as well. And why not get code intelligence with your linting? That's just me. I don't tend to, in general principle, have those sorts of packages installed, primarily because, as you can see from my beard, I'm an old fuddy-duddy that has been coding for so long that I spent most of the time that I've spent developing software with tools that didn't actually do that. So while I do take advantage of Sublime's autocomplete dialog, I don't usually take advantage of the ones that are available in other tools like LinkPad and Visual Studio Code enough. How to pass text to a shell or specifically IPython from Sublime, not in Terminus, but externally opened. You mean like you have this open and I don't have IPython myself, but an external terminal, just like running Python, and you want to shoot information into it from Sublime. I'm imagining that the two things that come immediately to mind would be some sort of native code that can find a window with a specific title and paste text into it, or something akin to the package that I created called Sublime, that allows me to share information across sessions. Like, for example, if I copy this text and paste, you see that. If I was to come over to move my mouse using a KVM to this window on this side and copy, you see that text there says Vanterm updated the clipboard. And then when I come back here, I can paste stuff in that I copied off of that computer. If I wanted to do something like that, specifically with IPython, more or less, I would create some sort of server code in Python that can listen for connections and then insert the text that way. I'm not sure if that's actually even possible, but those are the only two things that come directly to mind. All else being equal, using it in Terminus is probably the easier thing to do because there's a send code plugin, and as we've seen in other, I have a video on it. As a matter of fact, we can push buttons. Yeah, this particular video shows an example of a simple plugin that can just take clipboard text and send it to a Terminus tab. So I personally would probably go that way. That seems less involved. Otherwise, you're probably looking at, trying to do something like, all right. On Linux, there's this that you can use to find windows with a specific name. I think you need this. This is a list of every window that's currently available, along with some magic ID, and then with other external code you could try to send text to it. So, yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't know how to do that. It seems like a rather involved thing. Probably it's possible. I mean, anything is, but you're probably talking at, well, send code to an external terminal. That might be an option. That I've never used it myself. But if it can find an externally running application and send it text from the clipboard, and it doesn't have to be something that's running inside of Terminus or such, then I would try that. It's also a package by Randy3K. Oh, there you go. It even says it right there. Send code and text to macOS and Linux terminals. That may or may not work on Windows then, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, Commander is a Windows thing, so I'm assuming that this will work for some Windows terminals, maybe not all of them. But it includes IPython, so install this package. Problem solved. It's probably done all of the hard work of the thing that I just said, where you have to natively be able to talk to an externally running application. It hasn't been updated in 2 years, so if it didn't work before, it may not work now. I've never tried it myself. Oh, there we go. It specifically says Terminal, iTerm, RGUI, RStudio Desktop, RStudio, and Jupyter, running on Chrome and Safari. Commander, ConEmu, RGUI, RStudio Desktop on Windows, and Tmux, Screen, GNOME Terminal, Pantheon Terminal, Mate Terminal, Console, RStudio Desktop. XFCE4 Terminal isn't listed. I wouldn't be able to use it, and of course you can use it in Terminus because it came from the exact same author. Yeah, so there, I would give that a try, unless, if you've tried it before and it didn't work, then that might not work for you. But maybe now that you know more that you did then, since you graduated from Terminus, did you say? Oh, I see. Yeah. Do you not have gigantic multiple monitors on your desktop? Because that'll totally be a solution to that problem as well. All right. I think that is going to do it for this week's stream. So let me press the button. I'm going to press. Oh wait! Before we press the button, we had some successes. We helped people with problems. Also, I tried to create a plugin, or tried to use a plugin that will only set view-specific settings. That. We're supposed to trying to set a UI setting, and that's not going to work. And I didn't realize that send code could actually talk to external applications. So, didn't get to press the buttons this time. I know, isn't it? It's pretty cool. If you watch last week's playback, we actually created a very simple build system in Sublime that uses Terminus and multiple tab selections, so that every time you build something, it moves the tab to the right. Very easy to do, once we typed the stuff in correctly, because it was very easy to do, and I just kept running the wrong commands. Life could be complicated sometimes. If you have real-world use cases for what you use tab multi-select for and how it has enhanced your workflow, you should let me know in the Discord or in a comment or an email or etc. Because that's it's actually a sort of a commonly recurring question from people now that Sublime Text 4 is out. They say, this is cool, but what's it actually good for? And I personally I have a hard time verbalizing it myself. I use it for very specific things when I do use it, and I find it very useful, but I know there's got to be others, and it might be a useful video. But yeah, so we're gonna call it for tonight. Everything went beautifully this time. This is the first stream in 2 weeks that YouTube didn't do something stupid and decide that I couldn't see my own playback. And so on and so forth. Now remember, the video this is public right now, but once the stream ends, the playback is still there, but it goes to unlisted. But down in the description of the video, should be a link for the entire playlist for this, unless I did that incorrectly as well, in which case we may have to tweak that up as well. I may have lost it out of there. Oh man, I am an awful streamer. It's definitely on the channel though, Sublime Text Live. If you look under playlists on the channel page, and it will be there. Quick look at the docs for non-LSP people. Quick look at the docs for what? But, yeah, so the playback for this will be unlisted, just because it tends to hurt the channel's viewership and click-through numbers to have a 2+ hour live stream playback. But there is a playlist on the channel. I'm going to fix the description down below. It is using the wrong I think I may have, while I was trying to fix things a ways back, copied the wrong template. So I'll fix that. There's a playlist on the channel. All of the live replays are still there if you want to go back over anything that we've seen here. If you have any questions, you can, of course, leave them in the comment section, in the Discord, in messages. There's a lot of places to get a hold if you have any ideas for videos. And that's going to be it for this week's Sublime Text Live. We'll see you next Tuesday, same time as tonight. And remember, I also stream on Twitch Wednesdays and Thursdays, or Wednesdays and Fridays. That's tomorrow. And the Bring It In the weekend where we do stuff. You can also ask your Sublime Text questions there as well. We have a pretty banging chat in there. And that's going to do it. Thanks for everybody who showed up today. There's 13 viewers right now. Thanks to everybody who subscribed while the stream was on, whether you got a notification or not. You guys are awesome. The subscriber count is absolutely through the roof. You guys are amazing. I'm completely gobsmacked every time I go to answer questions. Respond to comments and see what the subscriber count is. Oh, and guitarist Tom. Oh, I am a guitar player as well. A poor one, but a guitar player. And hello and goodbye to Daniel Lima. We're just shutting down. Thanks to everybody who showed up. You can show up for the next stream, show up, hang out in the Discord and chat, or I'll see you in a Twitch stream. Keep those Sublime Text questions coming, and I'll keep the videos coming. And until the next time, please have a sublime day.